Thank you very much, Isfan. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good Aydin, good morning. It's a great pleasure to be speaking to you this morning at ICT Summit Eurasia and to be back in the beautiful city of Istanbul. I'd like to thank Interpromedia for inviting ITU to this event. And when I say ITU, I mean the UN Agency for Information and Communication Technologies in Geneva, and not the Istanbul Technical University. Interestingly, I Googled ITU when I got back to my hotel last night, and I found that the Istanbul Technical University came first. ITU, International Telecommunications Union, came second. So I also discovered that the university predates the union by 92 years. The university was founded 239 years ago. So let me start by saying a little bit about the Geneva ITU. This is, in fact, the oldest intergovernmental organization. It was formed in 1865 to deal with the problems of lack of interoperability of the new international telegraph service. So it was originally called the International Telegraph Union, and it took its current name in 1934. And today, many people are suggesting that we need another name change because we deal with a lot more than just telecommunications, or what people consider to be telecommunications. And we deal with a wide breadth of information and communication systems. But of course, the definition of telecommunications in the ITU is very wide and encompasses ICTs. So really, there's no need to change the name. ITU is a multi-stakeholder organization. The membership includes governments, regulators, industry, and since the beginning of last year, academia. So ITU could become a member of ITU. And international organizations, intergovernmental and non-governmental, financial institutions and civil society. 193 governments and over 700 other members, all participating in various capacities and in the various activities of ITU. These activities are divided between three sectors. The radio communications, ITUR. This plays a vital role in managing the radio spectrum and the satellite orbit. And of course, these are critical natural resources which are very limited and have increasing demand placed upon them to provide spectrum for the fixed broadcasting, emergency telecommunications, meteorology, global positioning systems, and especially nowadays, mobile communications. Then we have a development sector. The ITUD concentrates on issues of bridging the digital divide, including the provision of assistance to developing countries to put in place policies to encourage competitive ICT markets and measures to advance the information society. And thirdly, the standardization, ITU-T. International standardization is very important. ITU standards continue to strive to meet the objectives of the founders of ITU, international interoperability. It is the reason that there are 6 billion mobile phones and 2.4 billion internet users in the world. It's not exaggeration to say that without ITU standards, this world of ICTs would not function. ICTs affect everything we do in life today in the 21st century. But even with these 6 billion mobile users and 2.4 internet users, 2/3 of the world's people still do not have access to internet, let alone broadband. The theme of this session is Next Step in Telecom. So the next step must be to replicate the mobile miracle which has happened over the last 2 decades, to bring broadband to all the citizens of the world. Broadband is essential to deliver services such as e-health, e-education, and e-government. It is also helping to address some of the critical issues that we face at our time, including the digital economy, climate change, and environmental sustainability. Broadband will enable every country to compete in the new online world of commerce and virtual goods. Given what we know about the real and tangible benefits of broadband to empower people, how can we make sure that everyone gets access? One answer is policy leadership. Yesterday we heard about the tremendous growth here in Turkey. This would not have been possible without the clear, transparent, and stable enabling regulatory environment provided by the ICT Authority. However, ICT is a global industry. What can be achieved in one country is largely determined by conditions in other countries around the world. Just as we need international technical standards for products and services to operate globally, so we need an international regulatory framework to enable sustained and equitable growth. Delivering the foundations for this next step is the target of a very key conference to be held in Dubai in December this year. This conference will amend the only truly global treaty on international telecommunications, a treaty that 178 countries are bound to, but which is now well out of date, having not been revised for 24 years. So the World Conference on International Telecommunications, which we refer to as WICIT, will be a landmark event revising a treaty known as the International Telecommunications Regulations, the ITRs, that laid the foundation for the phenomenal growth of telecommunications, in particular mobile and internet, in the last 2 decades. Indeed, the question before the conference is how to amend the treaty to bring the benefits of today's information society to all the citizens of the world. To this end, there is considerable support for including some essential, high-level, technology-neutral principles in the treaty. And of course, these principles should have positive impact on the future growth of the internet. The internet has become a critical national resource, a vital part of national infrastructure, and a key driver of social economic growth and development. The 1988 ITRs were instrumental in enabling the global deployment of the internet, and many other ITU activities have been and will continue to be essential components of internet growth. Let me mention just a few. ITU standards for end-user equipment, such as modems, including XDSL and cable modems, compression standards, security standards, including standards to combat spam, standards for the backbone networks, including fiber optics, and of course the radio frequencies used to implement mobile broadband and Wi-Fi. So many pieces that make up the internet ecosystem are vital to work together seamlessly. For this to happen, the right public policies and regulatory framework are critical to ensure a synergy amongst all the stakeholders in the ecosystem. As Dr. Ajara pointed out yesterday, data volumes are increasing much faster than the infrastructure needed to carry it. At the same time as data volumes are increasing, unit prices are decreasing. So total revenues to telecommunications operators are potentially at risk. As a result, there is a risk of an infrastructure investment shortfall. Some have proposed, therefore, that the conference needs to address this disconnect between sources of revenue and sources of cost, and to agree a global framework which will provide stability and incentive for the private sector to invest in and promote sustainable further development of the network that delivers the internet and other over-the-top services. We all know that the cost of access to the internet in developing countries is extremely high. So there are also proposals to bring down the cost of internet connectivity in developing countries while ensuring sufficient revenues for the operators to deploy broadband infrastructure. And we know that international mobile roaming prices are very high. ITU has, in the last few weeks, agreed on measures to reduce bill shock, whereby consumers are faced with unexpected and excessive charges for mobile roaming. ITU has approved measures that will empower consumers and encourage operators to lower their tariffs. This is the first truly international agreement to take steps to lower roaming costs. So this will also be an issue to be addressed at the conference in Dubai. Some of the other issues on the table for the conference include the right to communicate, security in the use of ICTs and the protection of national resources, taxation, misuse and hijacking of international telephone numbers, accessibility, ICTs and climate change, and interoperability. All ITU's members have been able to participate in the preparations for this conference, and all the current proposals have been made public on the ITU website, and it's possible for anyone, anywhere, to comment on these proposals and to submit their comments, which will appear on the ITU website. Many have recognized that the revision of the ITRs must encourage broadband rollout and investment. They should emphasize the importance of liberalization and privatization, and should recognize the role of the private sector and market-based solutions. The current international regulatory framework is simply not equipped to deal with the challenges we face today, which did not exist in 1988. Challenges which will affect the development of a fully inclusive information society over the next decade. The treaty should lay down the principles for the next step in bringing the benefits of the information society to all the world's citizens. WICIT is an opportunity, therefore, to create a stable international regulatory framework, providing the right conditions to allow markets to flourish globally and bringing equitable, affordable, and secure ICT services to everyone. So let us make sure that we do not miss this opportunity to take one important next step. Thank you very much for your attention.